Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Brian Bennett. Here's a very latest update on Hurricane Dorian, and I'm going to try to make this a fairly quick video, mainly only showing you the very latest computer models that we have. But real quick, looking at the storm, it's really not that far away from Florida. It's only about 500 miles away, but yet it's going to take 3 days to get from here to this general vicinity on the east coast of Florida, showing you that the storm is going to slow down quite a bit and allow room for a bit of wobbling to take place, which makes the forecast quite a bit challenging. Taking a closer look, you can see the storm does look much healthier than it did this morning. First of all, we have an eye. This morning we didn't even have a very concentric eye, but now we do. We have a very strong and well-formed eye wall as well. You can tell that the wind shear is not impacting the storm anymore either, because we have a symmetric, fairly spherical looking storm, maybe pulling in a tiny bit of dry air here on the north. Otherwise, we're looking at a very healthy storm here with winds of 115 miles per hour, making it a Cat 3 hurricane. Still moving to the northwest at 10 miles per hour, but we're going to see a bit more of a westerly movement as the storm continues to progress to the west northwest. All right, let's take a look at those computer models, and these are the very latest models that just came out. And at first glance, this may be a little overwhelming, but let me kind of show you what's going on here. First of all, the red lines here, this shows you several different computer models and where these different computer models have the hurricane making landfall on the east coast of Florida. And then the blue line actually shows where the storm will go once it makes landfall and moves on shore and weakens a bit, but nonetheless still has the potential to produce quite a bit of damage, drop a lot of rain, and obviously produce tornadoes as well. All right, so looking at a couple of models here. First of all, the farthest north landfall is the Canadian CMC model. The farthest south model is the German ICON model. And here's the National Hurricane Center here, which of course you should use for any official planning or evacuation plans. It has it making landfall right around West Palm Beach and then turning off to the north. But you notice that all the models do agree that it's going to make landfall or become very close to making landfall and then make a sharp turn to the north. That is something that all the models can agree on, but still a pretty wide discrepancy in exactly where the storm is going to move on shore. So traditionally, the European model would be my go-to model of choice for hurricanes. It does really well determining how tropical systems are going to wrap around an area of high pressure, and that's really one of the controlling features here, is determining how it's going to interact with the surrounding pressure systems. Well, with the latest European computer model run, guess what? The European actually doesn't have the hurricane making landfall in the state of Florida. Instead, it turns to the north. It does scrape the east coast of Florida, which means still the possibility for some strong winds, some heavy rain, some rip currents, some very large surf, some storm surge, a few tornadoes, but we would be missing out on the eye wall, which is where the very heaviest rain and wind would occur. So a solution like this from the European would be something that would actually be a very positive thing. I can't get quite excited about this quite yet because the European has really just been all over the place. It's not been consistent at all, so we can't look at one computer model run and think this is going to be the solution. The National Hurricane Center run, of course, they look at all the models and put together a good solution here, and they have a landfall around West Palm Beach and then moving north, basically right over Orlando as the storm slowly weakens. You can't help but notice the ICON model, especially if you're in Tampa Bay. It's the only one that really takes the storm that far west. And it's kind of an outlier, so that makes it a little less likely that it'll be the path of choice. But nonetheless, this is a scenario that could be a possibility. The storm very well could make landfall farther south, and it could make more of a westerly track. But right now, that's not really something we should worry too much about. Now, if we see the other models hopping on board with more of a southerly and a westerly track, then that's something we'll have to pay more attention to. All right, the HWRF model. This is a model I like to use for forecasting hurricanes. It's a high resolution model, which means it will pick up on some of the weaknesses or some of the smaller details that might occur in a high pressure and as far as a storm wrapping around that high pressure. Well, the H-Warp has the storm making landfall right around the Port St. Lucie area, which has been pretty consistent with the models over the last 24 to 36 hours. And then it turns off to the northwest, eventually more of a northerly track, but still it manages to go inland, actually, with the center of circulation possibly crossing over parts of northeast Polk County and then impacting Orlando on the eastern side. Keep in mind, you don't want to be on the right side of this arrow. On the right side, or the right quadrant of a hurricane, is where you have these stronger winds, you have a greater chance for tornadoes, and often you have the heavier rain as well. So you want to be on the left side of this center of circulation. So Orlando, this would not be a good path for you, as it'd be very heavy rain and also some strong gusty winds, even though the storm would be kind of weakening a bit by that point. GFS, American model, is going a bit farther north with a landfall around Melbourne and then turning off to the north. The times have changed a little bit. We're looking at landfall most likely happening Monday night. Now, so that's a little bit later than what we were calling for, so that indicates the storm kind of slowing down a bit. But Monday night now looks to be the potential landfall here on the east coast of Florida, or perhaps being not a landfall, but one scraping the east coast of Florida, as the European is calling for. The winds, based on all the different models, anywhere from 110 miles per hour up to 140 miles per hour being forecasted by the National Hurricane Center. So we are looking at winds well over 100, possibly a Cat 3 or Cat 4 hurricane when it makes landfall. As you can see, still quite a bit of discrepancy in exactly where the landfall is going to occur. We do have 3 days to still work things out, and I think once the storm, I would say tomorrow, we should have a much better idea where this is going to go. Now that we have an actual eye, that means that the models are going to be able to pick up on this a bit better, and I think we'll be able to really narrow down the solution a bit more by this time tomorrow. Again, rain totals, 9 to 12 inches possible, especially right around the center of circulation. So folks in West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, Jupiter, Vero Beach, even upwards from Melbourne, you should still very strongly consider evacuating, especially if you are in any non-permanent housing. By that I mean any type of mobile home or any non-brick structure. You should also consider strongly leaving if you're anywhere near the water or it's prone to any type of flooding. Same thing goes along the immediate coastline all the way up and down the coast. If you're in a storm surge area that has flooded before a storm surge, you really want to strongly consider evacuating. Same thing goes if you're in a vulnerable area right around Lake Okeechobee. We're looking at the potential for a lot of rain. So in case any of the water were to exceed the banks of Okeechobee or some of the nearby waterways, then you would definitely not want to be in that area as well. Right now, Tampa Bay, where I live, I have trimmed some of the trees down a little bit to help in case we have strong gusty winds. I don't have to worry about some of the weaker tree limbs falling on parts of the house, that type of thing. Making sure you have anything that could blow around indoors, like say some patio furniture, that type of thing. Make sure you have that secured. It's always better to be more prepared than less prepared. One last thing I'll say though is I've been out. I'm getting my generator fixed right now, which is awesome. Not to have it's great to have a generator, but to have a non-functioning generator isn't so good of a thing. But one thing I'll say, the vibe is a little frantic in some areas when it comes to folks trying to get out there and get prepared for this hurricane. I know this is a Cat 4 and it has a potential of making landfall as a Cat 4, but let's just remain calm with this and hope for the best, and maybe the storm will end up being offshore, but let's prepare for the worst and hope for the best. All right, guys, that's the latest with these computer models here. I'll probably do a live session a bit later if you guys are interested in that, and that way I can answer any questions that you might have, whether you live in Tampa or Orlando or Miami or wherever you live. I can answer those questions for you. So I'll plan on doing that a bit later. All right, guys, that's it for now. Those are the latest computer models. Till next time, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.